Right, let's jump straight into this explainer with a pretty massive idea. We aren't just looking at some standard timeline of isolated historical events today. As this opening thought perfectly captures, this is not simply the story of a religion. It is the story of civilizations that connected Africa, Asia, and Europe in ways that completely transformed human history. We are talking about 14 centuries of history that literally built bridges across 3 different continents. So, welcome to the explainer. Today, we're taking a grand tour through the historical lands of Islam. We'll be mapping out all these incredible innovations in science, architecture, and global trade that were born directly out of these interconnected regions. From the deserts of Arabia to the palaces of Spain, and from the bustling markets of Cairo to the beautiful gardens of Samarkand, we're going to see exactly how these civilizations left a permanent footprint on the world we're living in today. Here's our roadmap for the journey. We're kicking things off with the origins and early expansion, traveling to the intellectual hub of Baghdad, then exploring the Mediterranean crossroads and the Eastern trade networks, before wrapping it all up with the Ottoman era and its massive global legacy. Okay, let's get into our first section, origins and early expansion at the Arabian crossroads. Now, before Islam even emerged, Arabia was basically this intense political pressure cooker. The region was sitting right at the crossroads of the ancient world. You already had trade caravans moving spices, incense, silk, and precious metals back and forth. But to the north, you had 2 massive rivaling superpowers, the Byzantine Empire and the Sasanian Persian Empire, and they were constantly clashing. That endless friction completely shaped the political and economic landscape for the diverse tribes living down in Arabia. To really grasp how things fundamentally shifted, we have to anchor ourselves to a few crucial dates. In the 7th century, Muslims believe Prophet Muhammad received divine revelations beginning in the cave of Hira in Mecca. Facing some pretty severe opposition, a pivotal moment happened in 622 CE. This was the Hijra, the migration to Medina, and it's so foundational that it actually marks the start of the Islamic calendar. What followed over the next few decades was just an incredibly rapid expansion of administration, trade, and cultural exchange across the Middle East, North Africa, and Persia. But here's the thing. This early community in Medina didn't just expand geographically. They established a society built on some very distinct core principles. We're talking monotheism, justice, compassion, charity, and moral responsibility. And these weren't just abstract feel-good ideas. They were the practical glue holding this fast-growing community together as completely different peoples, languages, and traditions started mixing. Moving right along to Section 2, let's zoom in on the 8th century intellectual epicenter of the world, Baghdad, the city of knowledge. If you want to talk about a true golden age, we absolutely have to talk about the House of Wisdom. Founded in the 8th century, Baghdad almost overnight became one of the greatest centers of learning on the planet. And the House of Wisdom wasn't just some quiet library where books went to collect dust. It was an active, buzzing intellectual hub. Scholars from all over the map gathered there to translate massive amounts of work from Greek, Persian, Indian, and Syriac traditions straight into Arabic. They were literally capturing and preserving the intellectual heritage of the known world all in one spot. And the flow of knowledge here is just fascinating. It's like a 3-step chain reaction. Step 1 was translation, sure, but step 2 was rapid expansion. Scholars in Baghdad took those translated works and pushed the boundaries completely, making huge leaps in mathematics, astronomy, medicine, engineering, philosophy, geography, and chemistry. Then step 3, the transmission of all this newly expanded, highly advanced knowledge out to Europe and beyond. That specific flow is exactly why this era is absolutely crucial to our modern scientific foundations. Which brings us perfectly to Section 3, the Mediterranean crossroads, where distinct cities were turning into buzzing centers of brilliant architecture and society. There's a really cool cultural and architectural contrast going on across the Mediterranean at this time. Over in the east, in cities like Cairo, Damascus, and Jerusalem, magnificent architecture was popping up everywhere. You've got historic mosques, these amazing ancient markets, and massive, highly organized hospitals where merchants, scholars, and pilgrims were constantly swapping goods and ideas. Meanwhile, across the sea in Al-Andalus, on the Iberian Peninsula, a totally different revolution was happening. Cities like Cordoba were revolutionizing farming with advanced agricultural irrigation, while also housing hundreds of thousands of manuscripts in vast libraries and building stunning complexes like the Alhambra and the Great Mosque. Okay, let's pivot away from the Mediterranean for a second. Section 4 is all about the Eastern trade networks. Let's see how this civilization stretched east and tapped into some of the most famous trade routes in human history. You've definitely heard of the Silk Road, right? Well, it wasn't just a single dirt road. It was this incredibly complex network connecting east and west, anchored by massive central hubs like Samarkand and Bukhara. And yes, they were moving insanely valuable physical goods: silk, spices, paper, porcelain, precious stones. But honestly, their most important cargo was culture. These merchants were the ultimate conduits for cross-continental exchange. They carried brilliant inventions, new languages, and completely unique artistic traditions right alongside their spices. Follow those networks even further into South Asia, and you'll find Islam became deeply rooted there too. Successive Muslim dynasties profoundly influenced the region's literature, music, and education. But what you can visibly see today are the monumental urban developments and architectural masterpieces. Down in regions around Delhi and Lahore, they left behind undeniable artistic achievements. The most famous, of course, being the Taj Mahal, which is still one of the most universally recognized examples of artistic brilliance on the entire planet.
All right, moving into our final section, the Ottoman era and global legacy. Let's look at how all these centuries of expansion, trade, and intellectual pursuits set the stage for the modern era.
1453. That year represents a monumental shift in global power. Constantinople became Istanbul under Ottoman rule. And guys, this wasn't just a simple change of hands. It was the birth of one of the world's truly great capitals. The Ottoman Empire grew to govern incredibly diverse populations across a gigantic territory stretching over southeastern Europe, Western Asia, and North Africa for literally centuries. So what does this vast span of history, from the Arabian caravans all the way to the Ottoman legal and commercial networks, leave us with today? A massive shared global heritage. It's the foundation of our modern world. The scientific traditions we rely on, the architectural styles we admire, the languages and literature we study, the diverse global cuisines we eat, and even the commercial trade networks running our economies right now, they all bear the enduring marks of these interconnected civilizations. It's not the story of a single empire. It's a history shaped by countless communities over hundreds and hundreds of years. Which brings us to the end of our journey today, and I want to leave you with a provocative thought. History is way more than just a dusty record of the past. It's a bridge that helps us make sense of our present. So ask yourself, how much of our modern, highly interconnected world do we owe to these countless communities who shared ideas, goods, and knowledge across the historical lands of Islam? Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never stop looking at how history continues to shape the world around us.